Hey guys, Gerard here, CEO of the spin-off of Frog in a Car, Grabbing a Cat. We're not doing so good. As you know, I recently made the mistake of telling Alex Fasciani, the weird genie I captured and forced to work at the office, that he was now officially the head of Patreon. And how? But honestly, weird as it's been, it's really been working itself out. $5, you get roles on Discord, art, scripts, and a Donkey Kong remix every week. And that's called the completion bonus. But what Alex really wants me to remind you about is the one main event, our big monthly bonus. Yo quiero Taco Bell. Yep. As always, to be a part of it, just put your $5 down on Patreon and we'll do something nice just for you. Like last month, I did an exclusive AMA with Yacht Club Games about their new title after Shovel Knight, Mina the Hollower. It was cool. Everybody gets to see the video when it drops on the channel, but with the completion bonus, not only do you get to watch it early, but you also get to ask the questions that are in the video. And now it's time for May's big thing. Sometime in June, we're gonna be offering the first ever digital album of original completionist music and remixes, featuring tracks from some of the best music creators out there today. It's lit, it's gonna have dope album art, and next month, it's gonna be available to the public for $10 out the door. But if you're signed up for the completion bonus this month, which again only costs half of that, because it's always $5 a month, not only do you get the album for free when it drops, but we will drip feed you album art and preview tracks all month long when we get ready for the public release. So yeah, which is more, $5 or $10? I think they probably already got that figured out. I know, I'm just making sure because I'm the president of Patreon. Oh, you're president now of Patreon. Right. Please sign up for this, get the album, watch the AMA, and get all the weekly stuff as a part of the completion bonus. Always just $5 a month at patreon.com/completionist. Sound good, Alex? Sounds great, Alex. Okay, that doesn't even make sense now. Did it ever? You know what? Great point. Yo quiero Taco Bell. There are good games and there are bad games. But then there are games like The House of the Dead 2, a Frankenstein mishmash of cutting-edge gameplay, great graphics, for its time anyway, continuity errors up the wazoo, and some of the worst dialogue and voice acting ever to pass pixelated lips. Seriously, this game sounds like it was written and directed by the same people who wrote Troll 2 before they got good enough to make Troll 2. But instead of shambling off into the shadows of shame, from the very start, The House of the Dead 2 seemed to revel in its so bad it's good level of cheese. And the crazy thing is, it worked. It made a huge impression on me at a young age. The first House of the Dead game was the highest grossing arcade game in Japan in 1998. And it was a hit here in the US too. When House of the Dead 2 was also a hit both in arcades and on the Dreamcast, it sealed the deal, kicking off a franchise that spawned 3 more sequels, 9 spin-offs, and even a couple of film adaptations that were also just as good as Troll 2. House of the Dead 2 is nothing if memorable, both for its good qualities and the not so good ones. Even more than 20 years later, it's still one of the most fun games I've ever played and recompleted.
And the battle continues. This could turn it all around. This bout will determine who is the strongest once and for all.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Completionist New Game Plus, the show where I am recompleting the first 120 games I ever featured here on the channel. Now in today's episode, we're traveling through space and time back to what looks like, I don't know, Italy? Maybe? In the 90s? Early 2000s? Look, monsters have taken over the city, and only AMS government agents James Taylor and Gary Stewart can stop them. Now what does AMS stand for? Well, that's just one of the many mysteries that the House of the Dead 2 isn't giving up without a fight. Actually, in this case, not even then. Does anyone know what AMS stands for? Anyone in the room? Anyone?
No.
I don't think the A stands for America because it's like takes place somewhere in Europe, right? So let me know what you think in the comments down below. AMS. I'm sure if I just, you know what? No. I'm gonna save myself the embarrassment. What does AMA House of the Dead stand for?
They have to have done something. Okay, well, technically it is an American government agency for worldwide criminal investigations and intelligence collection. So while we don't know what AMS stands for, we have to assume that the A is American. And knowing is half the battle.
How could anyone do this?
The original House of the Dead is an on-rails light gun shooter about a mad scientist named Dr. Kurian, whose illegal experiments unleashed a legion of malformed monsters on an unsuspecting city somewhere in Europe. House of the Dead 2 picks up where the first one left off. An investigation of the incident from the previous game spirals into a repeat of the disaster, with yet another horde of zombies unleashed by yet another psycho with lofty ideals. And once again, it is your job to put a stop to it. Mostly by shooting your light gun at everything that moves. Well, not everything, just the bad guys. You're supposed to save the civilians. Although most of the time, saving them just means shooting a zombie and moving on, leaving the civilians to fend for themselves. I guess even AMS agents hate escort missions as well. Despite being a sequel, the release of the House of the Dead 2 marked several firsts. It was the first game to utilize Sega's Naomi hardware board for arcade cabinets, a state-of-the-art system board that cost a third of its predecessor's price tag, and it became one of Sega's longest-serving boards, receiving support for a whopping 11 years. The House of the Dead 2 is also one of the launch titles for the Sega Dreamcast, which shared architecture with the Naomi boards in 1998. And in my case, it wasn't just my first Dreamcast game. It was also the first and only video game that I got to play with both my brother and my dad. Around the time this game was released, my family was going through a lot. My dad in particular. He was struggling with several difficult medical conditions all at once, and he was in the process of recovering from a quadruple bypass heart surgery. It was a lot to deal with as a kid, and like many kids, I looked to video games whenever I needed an escape from reality. Knowing how badly I wanted a Dreamcast, and remembering how much fun we had trying out a friend's copy of the House of the Dead 2, my brother Jacques convinced my mom to give us a home console of our own. Jacques and I played the House of the Dead 2 together for hours on end, shooting up monsters almost until dawn on some nights. It might sound strange, but there was something comforting about it. Yes, this was an adult game with scary monsters, but the game was cartoony enough to be funny rather than scary. And we were so focused on killing monsters that we forgot about the bad stuff happening in our lives, at least for a little while. Then late one night, our father stumbled into the room, half awake, practically a zombie himself, and caught us playing. It was probably 2 in the morning or so. We figured we were about to be yelled at for sure. See, if there's one thing you need to understand about my dad, it's this. He hated video games. He had no interest in them whatsoever. So we figured, hey, this is it. The moment he walked in the door, we're done. But there was something about House of the Dead 2 that caught his eye. Maybe it was the gunplay, the pure magic of pulling the trigger and mowing down a zombie like Rambo, if Rambo fought the undead. Maybe it was the graphics. It might be hard to believe looking at them now, but at the time, those polygons were pretty darn photogenic. Or maybe it was just seeing how much fun his sons were having playing together that made him want to join in. Personally, I think it's because the game is easy to understand. You take gun, you point at screen, you shoot bad thing. Whatever it was, I'm grateful for it. Because for the next 5 months or so, it was the three of us on that couch. The three musketeers of the AMS, if you will, shooting zombies together every day after school. We bonded over that game in a way we never had before. And even though it only lasted a short while, I'll never forget what it felt like to take names and kick ass together as a family. Years and years and years later, I finally got to revisit the House of the Dead 2 on the Wii on the House of the Dead 2 and 3 bundle. It was such a blast to get back into an old favorite, but it was also a little lonely. See, I played it by myself, and I was struck by how much I had missed the camaraderie of having my brother and my dad beside me on the couch. And in the end, I gave the game a mere play it rating. I couldn't help but wonder if playing co-op would have alleviated it to the next rating. So when the time came to recomplete it, I decided to not make the same mistake twice. With branching paths to follow, multiple modes to complete, and 3 different main endings to unlock. It was time to call my brother from another mother. My super beard brother, Alex Fasciani, to be exact.
Back me up, Alex.
Okay, Gerard.
Reload! Reload!
This thing doesn't even work.
There's batteries required.
This thing sucks.
What does that mean?
I gotta go get another one. Hold on.
What's going on? The city's chaos is increasing.
House of the Dead 2 isn't necessarily the best zombie game ever created, and it's certainly not the best written one by any means, but it is one of the most fun you can have with a fake gun, a friend, in a city full of monsters on a Friday night. Playing this one in co-op is key. It's not that you necessarily need the help, except for the final boss and some of the challenges. This game is not excessively difficult. Heck, with a little practice, even my dad was able to play like a pro way back when, and he never had played a video game before in his entire life. But playing it alone robs you of what would otherwise be a premium popcorn game experience. Just like Mystery Science Theater 3000 hosts need robots to riff with, the House of the Dead 2 is much better when played with a friend. Plus, you'll have someone to trade references with later on after you finish it. This game is stupid quotable, like The Room level of quotable. For me, completing the House of the Dead 2 with Alex was way more exciting than completing it by myself. Lip syncing along to the script I know by heart was a lot funnier with someone else there to laugh at the joke, and watching Alex go from zero to zombie killing hero was almost as thrilling as my own first playthrough. We had each other's backs from chapter 1. Whenever one of us got stuck, the other would take point and figure out a way to move on. It made the experience that much smoother and much more fun. Playing as one of 2 main AMS agents, James and Gary, your gameplay goals are pretty simple. Shoot the bad guys, do not shoot the good guys, and collect items that will help you do both without getting eaten alive by monsters or zombies. Every opportunity to save or sacrifice a civilian is also an opportunity to choose one of 2 possible paths through a level. Each path looks and feels a little different, and no 2 scripted scares are exactly the same. Which paths you take also impact the boss fights at the end of each level. Each boss has an A and B variant that changes up their movement set and the environment in which you face them in. The game also has 3 endings, 1 good, 1 bad, and 1 so-called normal ending. Basically yeah, you beat it, but you probably shot a couple of people by accident, didn't you, ending. Which one you get is determined by the number of points you accumulate throughout the game by saving people, killing monsters, beating the game quickly, avoiding taking damage, collecting coins, and shooting golden frogs. We'll come back to this later on. In the Wii version, there are 4 game modes total: Arcade, Original, Training, and Boss Mode. Arcade and Original mode take you through the game's story from beginning to end, and are almost the exact same except for one special thing. Original mode introduces the option to equip special items at the beginning of each run that can help change the entire experience. If you're playing solo, you can pick 2 items to take with you. If you're playing co-op, it's 1 item each. Items include everything from different types of guns and ammo, to power-ups such as extra lives and double points, to alternate character costumes and wacky miscellaneous items like the UFO, which has a chance of spawning alien spaceships in the sky throughout the game that can be shot down for a whopping 2,000 points. Training mode is exactly what it sounds like, a collection of 10 shooting mini games to help you hone your zombie killing skills. These range from straightforward challenges like saving all the people or destroying all the barrels, to real eye squinters like shooting tiny golden frogs from far away while the frogs are hopping along and you are riding on a boat. As someone who's an advocate for frogs, what do those frogs do to deserve being turned into target practice? Each challenge in training mode can be completed up to 5 times with a slightly higher difficulty for each iteration. Your reward for completing them all is simple: you get good, son! Boss mode is similar to training mode. Here, you can face any boss up to 5 times, again with a successfully greater difficulty level. If you manage to beat them all, you unlock the funnest, and by funnest I mean the most grueling, challenge of them all: fighting every single boss in the game in one go with only 5 lives per player. It is a true, genuine boss rush, baby. Not a boss baby rush, but you know what I mean. In case killing each of these guys the first 5 times around wasn't enough for you, double tap, baby. Well, more like sextuple tap, but that sounds wrong because I'm talking about a number, not sexual acts. You know what I mean? Have to admit, as much as I enjoyed replaying the House of the Dead 2 with Alex, there is a downside to completing this game. It's not how it looks. It's not how it sounds. In fact, I think it sounds amazing. Not the voice acting, obviously. Listen to that soundtrack and tell me you're not pumped to kill some baddies. No, the true problem with 100% completing the House of the Dead 2 is how it feels to fight the same damn bosses in both the main game modes and boss modes over and over and over again. The third time may be the charm, right? But the 30th time, not so much. Speaking of bosses, let's talk about the final boss, the Emperor. Fighting him is like fighting all those other bosses yet again because he can use the powers that mimic all of the other bosses. Guess what? If you're going through both story modes as well as boss modes, you get to fight him a total number of 7 times, assuming that you manage to kill him on the first try every time, which of course you will because you're a badass gamer, right? Right? Look, I struggled, but I did my best. I did it. You can do it too. That's the reasoning. Here's the thing. I'm not in love with the Wii Zappers. Like, yes, they are better than no guns, but I've also bought my fair share of random third-party Wii guns as well, and those aren't great either. You'd be surprised how bad that our hands would cramp after playing just one round of a game, which could take anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes. We would have to take breaks sporadically throughout, not because we're old and tired and exhausted, but because these guns are actually not built to be played well with. They look cool, but they're not great. It's weird to say this, but the Dreamcast light guns from my childhood work a lot better in my own hands and worked a lot better for the game too. Very bizarre stuff. Somehow, through all of this though, I still really enjoy House of the Dead 2. Good enough so that they've spawned multiple sequels and spin-offs, including a remake of the first game that just got released on the Nintendo Switch. But there's something special about the second one. When it turned out to be such a big hit, Sega quickly caught on to the campy appeal and leaned into it for the rest of the series. But there's nothing quite like the unintentional hilarity of moments like this.
Do you know what you're doing?
I'm fully aware of what I'm doing.
Above all, the House of the Dead 2 is infectiously nostalgic. For many people, revisiting it will bring back fond memories of blasting baddies left and right while friends cheer them on. For me, it takes me back all the way to those nights spent saving the city with my brother and my dad, one pull of that trigger at a time. Personally speaking, I love that this game hasn't been touched up at all for the Wii port. All the original cheesiness is left gloriously intact, and like any good cheese, has only grown more potent over the years. In a way, the House of the Dead 2's perfect combo of cheese and fun challenges was an accident, but a happy accident. One that no other game in the series, in my opinion, has been able to replicate and understand since.
This is a present from me to you.
Completion rewards in this game are pretty scarce. Typically, your reward for completing one challenge is to unlock the next one in either training or boss mode. There is one really great unlockable where you're supposed to get infinite credits for getting 5-star rankings on all training missions and boss fights. Unfortunately, the Wii version has a glitch that can prevent this reward from actually being added. I found this out the hard way the first time I completed this game, and honestly, it still kinda stings. Why would anyone do this? Between the branching paths and multi-level challenges, there is a surprising amount of work that has to go into fully completing the House of the Dead 2. It's long, arduous, and frustrating. And hopefully you have a good friend by your side that will not give up when you're diving straight into this beast that is the House of the Dead 2. When I re-completed the House of the Dead 2, there were 22 hours of total playtime, 6 chapters in the main story, 3 endings to unlock, 4 gameplay modes to fully explore and complete, 10 training mode stages to complete 5 times, each for a total of 50 challenges, 6 bosses, kind of. I say kind of because you play those 6 bosses and different various versions of them dozens of times. With that said, 30 boss fights just in boss mode alone, plus the epic Fight All battle, which is 5 times long, and lots of zombies destroyed. I don't know the number, you guys. It was a lot of zombies to kill. Yeesh, no wonder why my hands are so sore.
Glitches aside, extra gameplay modes like boss mode are great for casual players who just want to change things up every now and then. But if you're someone like me who's trying to play through every single possible instance and scenario that the House of the Dead 2 has to offer, you've already seen each boss at least twice in original and arcade modes, and in this video for that matter. So by the time you reach the end of 30 boss mode challenges, it's just not that exciting anymore. Especially when the game is telling you that each boss's special weaknesses right off the bat are right there identified at the start of every single fight. The first time I rated the House of the Dead 2 for this channel, I gave it a play it rating. All the repetition was extra depressing when I was playing it by myself. But looking back, I firmly believe that House of the Dead 2 is not meant to be played solo. It's meant to be a shared experience, one that you'll look back on and hopefully laugh about for years to come. Is it worth it to complete every single challenge in this game? Absolutely not. It's like hearing different variations of the same joke 100 times in a row. But is it an absolute blast to play through once, or even a few times, with someone who shares your sense of humor? Hell yeah. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game its new completionist rating of finish it.
Finish it!